Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. I'm Eric Kane with Austin Price, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs. Got plenty of questions to get into, so we'll go ahead and start right now. We'll start with Steven. Said, I've heard you guys speak at length about the comparing of the 23-24 offense to the 22 offense. Down to brass tacks, what have the real differences been? How many 20-plus, 30-plus big plays were there in 2022 compared to 2023? How many of those plays went for TDs across the season? Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so we have those numbers right here, and in 2020, let's see here, in 2021 and 2022 combined, there were 153 plays of 20 yards or more, 92 plays of 30 yards or more. The past two seasons, plays of 20 yards shrunk down to 111, and plays of 30 or more yards shrunk down to 52. With that, you can talk about quarterback play. Hendon Hooker, he completed 50 passes on 123 attempts for 23 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 2021 to 2022. And Joe Milton and Nico combined to go 34 for 111, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions the past two seasons in those categories. So that just goes to show you the plays of 20 and 30 yards or more from 2021 to 22 to this past two seasons. So those were the explosive plays. And Brent, I think you have those red zone numbers as well for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet here. In 2022, they were great in the red zone. Tennessee's touchdown rate in the red zone was 84%. The last two seasons, Tennessee's touchdown rate in the red zone has dropped to 62%. That's the difference. Tennessee scored 53 touchdowns in the red zone in 22. They scored 39 and 24. They scored 28 and 23 in the red zone. To me, red zone's a bigger deal than explosive plays. Explosive plays are obviously important, but Tennessee, and I think it's a bigger deal because teams are going to Austin not let Tennessee get the explosive plays. They're going to be more content with them driving the length of the field. So when Tennessee's driving the length of the field and they get inside the 20-yard line, they've got to finish with more touchdowns than they finished with the last two seasons.
Yeah, I agree. I think the red zone is a far bigger deal. I will say this. If you go back, you watch the Alabama game, you watch a number of games when Joe was quarterback, Alabama game last year. I mean, Tennessee had schemed things up and had beaten their man deep with receivers a number of times. And either Joe 2 years ago or Nico last year simply overthrew them. I mean, if you connect on those plays, then there's a lot less gnashing of teeth. Now, without a doubt, the last 2 years, Rob, nobody was running free the way Jalen Hyatt was just like routes on air at points in time in 22.
No, I mean the numbers paint the picture, but I mean, and it's oversimplified, but I think it's quarterback play. I mean, some people might, offensive coordinator, there was, that's worth looking at. There was certainly a change. I'm not saying that's not maybe significant, but I think, going from Hendon Hooker, who was, robbed of being a Heisman Trophy finalist by Stetson's inclusion into that ceremony. But just, I mean, Hendon versus the other two. I mean, I don't, receiver. Yeah. I mean, he had Jalen and Cedric, but I mean, I think the quarterback plays night and day.
Particularly in the red zone, because you got to make quick decisions.
Quick
in the
decisions,
process,
accuracy.
Yeah, those are Hendon Hooker's strengths, and his legs. You had to respect his legs in the red zone. So you had to defend more in the red zone as well with his legs because he was a very gifted runner. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is quarterback play for sure. Some of it's receivers, some of it's schematic changes that you're not going to let people run free as well. That's why I think they've got to execute it. And guys, no one practices red zone passing in the red zone, I don't think, more than Tennessee does. We know that because how many times do we get sent the opposite direction on the practice field because they're working on red zone passing stuff? So it's not like they ignore it. They know that that's where they've got to get better at. That's a huge step they've got to take this season, regardless of who the quarterback is.
Man, Hubbard, can you imagine how bad they'd be if media got to film that? Whew.
If media got to film the mesh point, quarterback, running back handoff, it's over.
Problems be even bigger.
0-12. All right, got a couple of apparel questions here. I kind of combined them. Tennessee Athletics has never been stronger in the last 10 years since wearing Nike uniforms. Do you want cash or do you want championships? My vote is karma over cash. Stay with Nike. Another question, how much more money is Adidas offering Tennessee than Nike? 1.5, 2, 2.5, more than that? I mean, what's this ballpark here that makes Adidas potentially that much more enticing than Nike? And again, we live in an era of rev share coming, and of course, you got to pay the players.
Austin, I don't know a specific number. It's been told to me significant. Now,
like four times as much, maybe.
Yeah,
that was the number thrown at me. Again, I don't know.
You said 4?
Yeah,
I heard substantial is what is kind of.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what it is because I don't even know that they've got a formal written on paper offer from Adidas at this point in time. But substantial, significant, 4 times, whatever. There, I mean, there's enough money involved there that this is a conversation point. I'll also say this: I don't know that Tennessee has been dominant the last 10 years in everything wearing Nike. And there's some pretty dark days during some of those Nike uniforms as well. So I don't know that Tennessee's good fortunes all changed a decade ago when they dropped this 3 stripes and picked up the swoosh. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like that was the case.
No, I think Butch Jones was the face of that press conference. Let's keep that in mind.
VolnRI, Brent, is the 5+11 just a smokescreen for the SEC? On one hand, I understand this coach's point of view. However, the answer is money. What's the question? Why would the president and Sankey want to do the ACC and the Big 12, knowing that this would be a nail in the coffin for the 9th conference game, but potentially 80 to 100 million more for the league? Okay, so 5+11, is that a smokescreen? Is the SEC and the Big 10 going to get 4 automatic qualifiers? Where are we at?
I don't know where we're at. I mean, I don't think it's a smokescreen. I think that obviously I think the coaches have voiced their deals. And I think when we talk about the money right now, all the money is hypothetical. I don't know what money has come to the table for sure. We've heard reports that, $80 million for an extra conference game. I don't know that anybody's seen formally $80 million for an extra conference game. I don't know that the Big Ten SEC challenge is a lock to play, that kind of series, So, I mean, I think we're, on the surface, it looks like there's a ton more money out there. But what is that money? How real are those dollars and how quickly do you get to those dollars? I think is something everybody's still examining. And there is some posturing as well, Austin, right? I mean, you're trying to play all sides of the fence right now. You certainly don't want to look like you're beholden to the Big Ten and just following their lead in anything. At the same time, too, you need the Big Ten to go with you. You got to have some kind of compromise and work together for kind of the greater good, if you will, because you're the 2 power brokers in college football. So we'll see. I think there's some meeting in Asheville, North Carolina that's taking place with conference commissioners. I think early next week. Then they're probably going to go to like Aruba at some point and meet, and they'll probably go to 3 or 4 more other exotic locales to have some sort of discussion about the same thing they've been discussing for 6 or 7 months. It feels like. I mean, they got together in New Orleans in January and discussed all this. Then they went to the playoff headquarters and discussed all this, and now they've discussed it publicly at their conference meetings, and now they're going to go to Asheville and have a private conversation in and around probably a spa day as well.
That's right. Got to head to the Grove Park Inn, Hubs. Got to head to the Grove Park Inn, get a little spa day.
A lot of meetings.
A good
lot of meetings. In a day and age of Zoom, a lot of travel to a lot of face-to-face meetings.
A good poker player never shows all his cards. That's why the posturing that you're talking about.
I mean, I tell you that. I mean, I don't know if it'll happen, but I guess my biggest surprise. I don't know if it's a surprise, but I guess takeaway from everything Sankey said last week was that and it made sense after everything he said to me, was that the SEC coaches were open to the 5-11, and it made sense but only if you're going to accept the fact that we're so much better than you. Right. You know what I mean? With with all the data he threw out there about the strength of schedule and what it meant, but I mean that's and Hupper goes back to your point. I think that in a vacuum, the SEC would be fine with the 5-11 because most years they would get more than 4 in. But I mean, to your point, I mean, I think that they have. In the end, it's going to be easier to have a partner and take 4 teams, even though you might get 1 or 2, left out every year. It's going to be the lesser of 2 evils, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point you have to take off your conference hat and put on the college football hat and decide what's the best for us long term versus what's the best for us short term right here what's not necessarily maybe doesn't feel like is 100% the best for the conference, but in the long term, it pays off more. All those things. Right now with the Big Ten, 4 automatic qualifiers, Eric, seems pretty simple, right? They got four teams that are clearly better than everybody else right now in this league. In that league, it feels like. And the way their scheduling model goes, you can have somebody jump up in there. And I think there's some points and cases of like, hey, do we want to have a situation like you had with Indiana? That, hey, we can schedule light, and if the conference schedule falls our way, we're one of the 4 automatic qualifiers. Is that the best part for the game? I think that's where the SEC and some other conferences are looking at. The Big Ten's going, hey, we love the 4+4 model. Makes perfect sense for us.
Yep. If I was the Big Ten, I would love that model as well for reasons you just pointed out. Zjsvols wants to know, Tony Vitello's quote about expecting consistency and not dominance leads me to ask, what should we as fans expect out of football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, and softball?
To be competitive. I mean, obviously to win your fair share. I mean, I think fans across the board in all fan bases sometimes have unrealistic expectations on a team. Yeah, not all the time. Sometimes no, depend on the circumstances. But I mean, I think if you're the football program, you need to be competing to be in the playoff every year. That should be your expectations. There'll be some years you don't make it, and then some years you do. But you better be competing for it and not on the outside looking in by late October.
Well, and in this day and age, dominance is not a realistic thing. It's never been a realistic thing in basketball because it's so much about matchups in the postseason, But I think across the board, dominance is that's a term that just shouldn't even be mentioned because I just don't think we're going to see that. And again, I think if you're a Tennessee fan, and we'll see what the next generation of athletics looks like in college athletics in general, but you should really appreciate what Tennessee has done the last few years when you're talking about football, Elite Eight in basketball, what Kim Caldwell did in year 1, what Tony Vitello's doing is dumb. Like, I mean, it's just dumb. When you go, what was it, 14-1 in regional games the last 5 years? Is that right?
Yeah, since COVID season, yeah.
I mean, that's just a crazy number. So, yeah, I mean, I get what Tony's saying. I also would say, Tony, you created the feeling of dominance because you have been dominant. And I get where it's created some unrealistic expectations and some criticism you probably don't like, but that's a result of going 14-1 in regional play because everybody now assumes you're going to the Supers. I mean, It's like that's like making the tournament. It's what it feels like in college baseball right now for this program. It's like, okay, we'll get to the Supers. We'll see what happens because we're in. When reality is what is that? That's Sweet 16 Elite 8 weekend.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's wild how good obviously this program is. And, fans all year long, some fans and everything is just kind of like expecting Omaha because, well, I mean, the last 3 out of the 4 years you've been there, right? And so it's kind of like, well, on one hand, you can never just expect that. But on the other hand, it's like, well, I mean, Tennessee's been there. I'm going to the same hotel. I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna eat that Perkins, 10 times again because that's one of the only places next to the hotel. It's just what you just said. It's just dumb what he's doing. And so I thought about this question from a baseball perspective, and I mean, tell me if I'm off base here. I think what you should expect year in and year out from Tennessee baseball, and I don't think this is too low, but it's to be a national seed and you're hosting a regional. Anything can happen in postseason baseball. It's wild, but I mean, you should expect Tennessee having postseason baseball at Lindsey Nelson Stadium like it did this past year and like it did in 22 and 21 because that means you're one of the top 16 teams and means you're one of the top 7 or 8 teams from the SEC. And usually you're much better than that, but from there on out, it's just kind of whatever happens.
I would just say in all sports, they expect to compete for SEC championships, and if you do that, you're going to be on the national stage.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Right. All right, Bud_Fox. DeSean Bishop is the best former football walk-on at Tennessee since fill in the blank.
Kelly Washington.
I mean, yeah, I think you have to go that route. I mean, he to me was a special circumstance.
I was going to say he was a pro baseball. I mean, he was a professional athlete.
I don't disagree with you.
The
question was best walk-on since.
You're right.
If you eliminate him, I would go with J.J. McCleskey.
I think that's what I was going to say. I think you have to go back that far.
Another Carnes Beaver, baby. Carnes, home of the walk-ons.
Both of y'all
Hey,
just absolutely crapped all over the Sullins twins.
Hey,
Shame on you.
That's true.
That is where I went
But
initially.
I'm getting ready. Eric Kane has heard of this person. Hubbard might have heard of this person. The Carnes Beaver walk-on pipeline extends all the way in the 80s in basketball. VFF shout-out, Travis Henry. Doug Carnes' high school teammate, walked on at UT, was a good player for 4 years.
I would not have gotten that one.
Hubbard, no recollection?
I don't remember.
Had a great porn stash, Hubbard, back in the 80s.
I don't remember that one.
I know the Travis Henry football player.
Hubbard, that surprises me.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. That's a good point.
Another one here for Bud Fox on Bishop. Do you think Peyton Lewis has a higher ceiling than Bishop, assuming it clicks for both players in 2025? Easy answer is absolutely yes, but man, Bishop just keeps proving everybody wrong, right? But the answer would be yes, right?
I think so. But I do think the floor for DeSean Bishop is higher than any other running back in the room.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Lfvol 31. Chances the quarterback competition extends into the season and we see a QB rotation for the first game or two. Could the Milton Hooker competition from his first year cause him to consider seeing some in-game action before a final decision on a starter?
I don't think so. I just don't think Heupel plays it that way. I'm not saying that whoever starts the season is going to finish the season. I'm just saying I think, whoever they name the starter for Syracuse is going to have every opportunity to be the starter all year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never know what happened with the Hooker Milton thing. I mean, Milton got hurt. That's what got Hooker on the field. I mean, he played a mop-up duty in week 1, but I mean, he went in the second half of the Pittsburgh game with the game on the line because Joe Milton couldn't go. And from that point on, he took the job and ran with it. But I mean, if Milton doesn't get hurt, what does Tennessee do in the Pittsburgh game? I don't know. I mean, they were right there in the game. It wasn't like they were getting blown out, so you made a quarterback change. So I'm with us. I mean, do I think they could end up playing multiple quarterbacks? I mean, can something change if somebody excels or somebody struggles? Yes. But do I think they come out of August and go, all right, we're going to rotate guys or we're going to by design play two? I don't. As a former quarterback, I don't think Josh Heupel has any thought process of playing multiple quarterbacks. I don't think he thinks that's good for his offense or good for the quarterback.
He does not want Noah Brandeis and Jesse Palmer.
Doug Johnson.
Was it Doug Johnson? I know Brandeis. Either one, whatever.
Well, they rotated every play. Nobody's doing that.
You don't know Travis Henry from Carnes, but you know the Florida quarterback platoon from 1998.
Volslater, who is one player you guys think is going to surprise some people and be a contributor this fall?
If I'm taking a bet right now based on buzz, I'm going Ethan Utley. I don't think anybody had Ethan Utley in the bingo card in January or even in spring practice as a guy who might be a regular fixture in the rotation at defensive line. What's his production level? I don't know, but he's going to get on the field, it sounds like, Austin.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Rodney Gardner loves him some Ethan Utley. Ethan Utley put in the work and really brought it in spring practice. Now he's got to continue that into fall camp, but he certainly left spring with enough oomph to feel like, this is a guy who can help Tennessee this fall.
The other one that's going to be interesting for me to see how things go in August for him is Rodarius Jackson. Does it continue to click for him like it did in spring practice? Because physically, he looks like he can help right now. I mean, and I think he's a little bit of a forgotten guy. People talk about Mike Matthews. They talk about Travis Smith. They talk about some other guys more than they seem to talk about Rodarius Jackson, although he gained some buzz in spring. I'm curious to see how he builds off spring in August.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you that you hear more about the other guys. I wouldn't say forgotten because, how can you forget about they only got 7 guys in the room? Like, they all going to have to play at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen McMurray, for me, again, he's a contributor already, but, with McCoy, where's he going to be the start of the season? They're going to have to rely on him. They're going to have to rely on Colton Hood. I think Colton Hood getting here frees him and McMurray up to go play a little star as well for Boo. And so I think, not like a main guy, all SEC guy, starting 12 games guy, but a guy that's going to help out a lot. I would say McMurray. Maybe a more under-the-radar guy, rotational guy, Jordan Burns at linebacker. Feels like he was going to play last year if he was healthy, but as a freshman, he was hurt the whole year.
Would you put Sham Umarov in that? Because, I mean, most people talk about Moy and Pendleton and the transfers and all that. But, Sham quietly had a really solid spring. Would you put him in that mix as well?
If he starts, yeah.
Not till I see him on the field. I don't. I mean,
but
could he be
Utley on the field?
Yeah, but we know that they're going to play 6 defensive linemen or 5 defensive linemen. I mean, Hobbs played as a freshman. They've played young guys there, right? I mean, it feels like, and I'm not knocking Sham. It just feels like you've been talking about Sham for, a couple of years now. Like, are they going to? Is that going to happen? I mean, yes. I mean, I think that if he's the guy and Pendleton's at center,
depends on who the center is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. He was going to take a job last year supposedly, and he didn't. He didn't get it over. Andre, and I just, I don't know. I've got to see him play more before I'm ready to kind of make that bold start. I know Rodney's going to force those young defensive linemen on the field to be a part of the rotation because he plays that many guys. I mean, here's the other thing too. What does the kid from Grand Valley State look like? Maybe he's better than both freshmen, and they don't get as much work. I don't know. We'll see about that. That'll be an interesting deal in August.
Is Rick Barnes just keeping the irons hot in anticipation of getting 15 scholarships, still recruiting transfers?
I mean, he's not banking on having 15 scholarships, and he's still recruiting transfers. I mean, certainly he's operating, with the knowledge that the 15 thing is a possibility, but that's not part of the strategy.
We are in early on a lot of high-profile 27s, and it looks like we have a shot at a lot of them. How much NIL do you think they look to spend in the 27 class realistically, knowing you have to spend a bunch to retain existing rosters every year?
I couldn't tell you what the budget will be for 2027. I mean, it morphed a lot from 2023 to 4 to 5, and now 5 to 6. So, as far as that 27 class, I think it depends on who they can get. There's a lot of high-profile guys, even just in this state, that are going to command heavy NIL dollars. Keyshawn Bowman, David Gabriel Georges, Maury Sanders, a lot of high-end guys in that 27 class in state. That doesn't count the out-of-state players that Tennessee is a realistic option for. So, that recruiting class, I think that's really much to be determined. And again, that's who they can get. I don't think they want to just, spend money on a bunch of guys that maybe, have a ranking but aren't going to be able to help you right away. If they're going to, I think they're fine going big, but they need to be players like David Sanders that are going to be able to contribute pretty quick.
With rosters going to 105 most likely, what would a typical class size look like moving forward? 25 to 30 players a year between high school and the portal?
It depends year to year. I mean, what kind of turnover do you have on your roster? Some years it might be 30 to 35. And some years it might be, a more 20 to 25 number. I think it depends on kind of what your roster turnover looks like. I'm going to be curious to see kind of what those, I guess you would call them preferred walk-on, guys who would have been preferred walk-ons that ultimately finish out to your 105 number.
Yeah.
How many of those guys stay, and how many of those guys end up, Austin, seeking greener pastures because they're not playing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, how can schools take, like if you're in Georgia and you're not, like you got a kid from South Georgia who you think is more of a tweener, probably in the old days would never have taken that kid. Do you take that kid now? If you're Tennessee, do you take a kid, from a local school that, you think is probably more like a Chattanooga / MTSU type kid because, now you can put that kid on scholarship, see what kind of where he develops to. I mean, would Tennessee have taken Garrett Reynolds all those years ago and let him out of Knoxville, out of Carter? Would they have taken who's the kid from Farragut that went away too? I mean, there was multiple.
Claybo.
Yeah, Claybo.
Rob, I got that one right. I just don't remember the Cardinals guy. Go ahead, Austin.
Maybe I do think that's a possibility that more local kids benefit from the 105 than before as far as higher end kids, higher end high school players who maybe aren't SEC guys, but are more than just what would have been an old school preferred walk-on spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Eric, that's going to be pretty fascinating when you think about it is how many kids say, yeah, I want to do that, or how many of those kids say, I'm going to go somewhere less so I can get on the field and play early and then basically be re-recruited in 2 years as essentially a junior college player coming out of a smaller school. Where's the kid's mentality on being kind of one of those guys versus going somewhere and playing, getting tape, putting it on tape, and then being re-recruited? There are a lot of people in the 7-on-7 world and in the training world that are advising some fringe kids to do that, to go that path. Go somewhere smaller for 2 years that you're going to play, get tape, get in a weight room, get in a college environment, and then put yourself in a position to be re-recruited.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I also think that it's a lot of times just depends on the kid or the people surrounding the student athlete. A lot of times, I mean, we see it all the time. Like, it's just SEC. I want to be associated with the SEC. I want to go to the best of the best. I want to go to the best of the best. Whereas the other guys will just be like, I'm going to go down and ball out and do what you just said and, re-enter the portal and, see what happens in a year or two. So I just think it kind of depends situation to situation, but that's a good point. UT Chuck 54, are the Vols so bad that some of the preseason polls have them ranked so low and really a non-factor in the SEC? Is it because of the Nico effect and losing some players in the draft, or are they truly that bad? Off season, there's lists here, lists there, preseason rankings and all that. I mean, there are some serious questions about Tennessee this year. We talk about it all the time. So I think some of that is valid. But also, Austin, I sit here and say these people making these lists for the most part, they're not on the ground floor. They don't know that, sure, losing James Pierce is a big deal, but Tennessee plays 13 other defensive linemen. Sure, losing Keenan Peely is a big deal, but Tennessee lost Keenan Peely midway through last year. They don't know the ins and the outs of all this. So I think from a national perspective, you see that Dylan Sampson is gone, and oh no, Dylan Sampson's gone. What are they going to do? Well, Tennessee still ran for 2,500 plus yards the 3 years before last year. So, like, people don't know that stuff. And I think that just from a national perspective, you see that, couple that in with Nico, who didn't light the world on fire, but he obviously was your quarterback of a college football playoff team. And then they're just, forcing Tennessee down the rankings and not giving Tennessee much of a chance.
Which is why I've been saying since Nico left, like, Josh Heupel is going to be able to fly under the radar with this team. They're going to be picked middle of the pack in the SEC. And you're right. There's not a lot of effort put into those lists. And a lot of times it's just like, well, who'd they lose? Oh, yeah, Sampson's gone. Lost Pierce in the first round. Nico left. And again, Nico showed flashes, but Nico was more name and NIL contract in terms of, the national perspective than he was anything else. And so, could he have been poised to have a big year here? Absolutely. We'll never know. So again, I think I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into any lists, but you're right. There are questions. Again, there are more unknowns than anything else. You just don't know what you don't know at this point.
Yeah. Lfvol, top 3 2026 safety targets that are realistic.
Safety targets?
Yes.
I mean, I think they will take the safety from Franklin. They're going to take multiple DBs. The question is they like to cross-train. They like the safety from Cale High School that's a teammate, with the linebacker that Tennessee's heavily in on from down at Cale. And so, like, we'll see kind of where they go. They got, the kid from Franklin coming in this weekend. He's a track guy. He can really run. Now, do I think he's multiple years away from being able to help you on the field? I do. So the question is kind of where do they go, with some of these other spots? I think they're in a really good spot for the kid from Cale. I think he's a really good player. I think Tennessee left 865 Live in a tremendous spot for him. But going to take official visits. We'll see where things go from there. But it just felt like Tennessee was on top for him when he left campus. And then outside of that, we'll see. They may only take 2 and then go to the portal for the rest. They've got, obviously, they'll lose Turrentine, but they'll have Idris Farouk back, hoping, obviously, that Caleb Beasley continues to take a step, whether he's playing at nickel and or safety. And then they got that big group of kids that they just brought in this last class that have been cross-training. That's a big thing under Tim Banks, is the ability to play multiple positions.
Question here from Eric_Kane. We saw Caleb Beasley play some star in the spring game and spring a little bit, and that makes sense. But, with the addition of Colton Hood and the versatility there, again, with McMurray, as we spoke on, wouldn't it be in Tennessee's best interest to put Caleb Beasley at safety, leave him at safety? Because right now, is there a freshman that is really pushing to be in that rotation? Because you've got Turrentine, you've got Farouk, who barely played last year, and then you got Caleb Beasley, who just moved to safety. Kind of like wide receiver, the numbers are thin there. So, shouldn't they just leave him alone at safety and bank on him being the third?
Well, you and I might think that, but what do the coaches think? And I don't know the answer to that. What you're saying makes sense. Hood frees up McMurray, and thus, in turn, frees up potentially Caleb Beasley. But, Beasley had a really strong spring, Brent, and I think took a huge step into him being a factor on the field. The question is where does he feel most comfortable, and where does Tim Banks see him being able to benefit this team the most?
Well, I think the other thing is, the X factor is we don't know when Jermon McCoy is going to be back and how effective he's going to be. When does he get back? Because until he gets back, you essentially have three corners. When you look at where it's at, other than some young kids. So I think the question is, yes, Beasley focuses on safety. If you feel like McCoy is going to be back, and then all of a sudden you feel like you've got, four corners with McMurray being a swing guy who could be your backup star guy as well as a backup corner. The thing is, if McCoy's not ready, then McMurray is battling Colton Hood for the starting corner job opposite Ricky Gibson.
Yep.
And so that limits some of your flexibility there. Now, once McCoy gets back, you got a lot more parts you can move around. But I think a lot of that hinges on McCoy's health.
Have any former off-the-field recruiting staff been elevated to go on the road now that Chop has been promoted?
Not to my knowledge.
No, you had Max who left, and then Chop. And those were the two guys that had been out on the road at periods of time. Nobody else is going out on the road like that with this current staff. It's just the main coaches as of right now.
Go Vols 182 over under. The win total for Tennessee per FanDuel Sportsbook, 8.5 regular season wins in football.
Is he wanting to say, are we there, or is he wanting to know who do we think Tennessee's going to lose to? I was confused by this question.
Okay, so the first part is just
a statement.
Over under, yeah, okay, and then who are the losses to? So I guess give your prediction on how many wins Tennessee's going to have, and then who Tennessee loses to.
All right, Rob Lewis.
I'll say, give me over 8.5, but Alabama and Georgia losses, and then, after that, I don't wild card. But with the quarterback questions, I think there's potential for, wild swings.
I think this team's. I would probably put them as a 9-win team right now. And my three losses will be to the big three because they got to go to Florida and win. That's just something they haven't done. So.
Yep, it's a very much see it to believe it type situation for me in terms of winning at Alabama and at Florida. So for right now, I've got Tennessee going over at 9, but losing to, again, like Brent said, the big three.
I don't know. I'm copping out on this because I just don't know where I'm at with this team.
Come on, you got to get something.
I've been on the record as saying I think Tennessee's going to win at Alabama. So I'm going to go over on the number of wins. I don't know. Does that mean they drop another game like Oklahoma at home? I guess it depends on what Oklahoma looks like with their new offensive coordinator and the Mateer kid at quarterback. But I think Tennessee wins at Alabama. I felt that way for a few months now. I'm much more bullish on that than I am with Tennessee winning at Florida. I'm more with Hubs. I think I'm just sitting down there in that open air press box in a billion% humidity over the years. I've slowly formed into Brent Hubs, and it's just like, it's my least favorite trip. It's the suckiest trip to take.
We're sitting there and we're
I'd rather go to Columbia, Missouri, and that should tell you all you need to know.
It's 2023 and we're sitting there, we're having lunch. And we're like, 4 or 5 hours from kickoff or whatever, and he just all of a sudden says, No chance. Done.
And then I put it on the board, and they're like, "What do you know?" And I'm
Who's hurt? What's going on? No, they're just going to lose. It I'm not saying that he was like, oh, they're going to shock the world and win down here in the swamp, but I mean, it was a light switch. It was just like all of a sudden he was like, nope, no chance. Nope, let's go home. Oh, it was funny. All right, we'll go to DWDYvawl 5. The SEC is still the only conference that doesn't allow intra-conference transfers in the spring. Shocked it hasn't been challenged. Do you think this has been bad, good, or a wash for the conference compared to others? It has been challenged a few times, Brandon. I mean, Brandon Kennedy won his appeal or whatever. I mean, he was eligible and then got hurt. But anyway, has this been good, bad for the conference?
Spring, though, was it?
Yeah, that was spring. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so.
I don't remember that one. He
That would have been before the transfer portal. Anyway.
He also had the grad. I think he was also a grad transfer deal and everything. Here's
and that was the thing. It was the grad transfer. But you're right. It was before the portal in general.
I am dumbfounded that it's not been challenged. In court. Do I think it is limited movement in the spring? Yes. Do I think there would have been more movement the last couple of years? SEC schools after spring practice, Rob Lewis to another SEC school? Yes, I do. Do I think some guys stuck it out to see what happened in the fall because they didn't want to go hours away from home? They wanted to stay in the South. They wanted to play in the SEC. Yeah, I think some guys stayed an extra semester, went through an extra season before transferring. So I think it's probably limited some movement within this league.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just surprised nobody's taking that to court since, all the NCAA seems to do is stack up L's.
DCE 1470, who are some of the targets in baseball portal that's open right now? How much time, if any, does Tony V and the rest of the staff have to recruit these players right now? It's a good question. Transfer portal is officially open, and Tennessee's already been active in adding, a couple of grad transfers, before this weekend. And you're always recruiting. I mean, Tennessee got a junior college commit earlier this week, Tyler Myatt, who's a really, really good player, and they had a late high school add to the class, top 30 player a couple weeks ago. So you're always recruiting while you're coaching. So from that aspect, it's kind of the same. But I mean, they're evaluating. They've got guys evaluating tape and numbers and all that, and checking people who are going in. Next week is win or loss in Fayetteville. Next week's when it's going to get really, really busy. Tennessee, I expect to host several prospects. And that's when it's going to get kind of moving pretty quickly. I think Tennessee's going to move quickly. I think they like to get a couple of guys early. I could see anywhere from maybe 2 to 4, 3 to 5, and then of course this changes. It evolves, of course, and depends on who leaves your team as well. Left-handed pitching, power bats, and then of course just kind of best available. So Tennessee's going to be active and going to be aggressive in the portal just like they always are.
I'm surprised that baseball and basketball, particularly baseball, doesn't squawk a little bit more about the portal, much the way kind of football does. Now, football's got 2 portal windows, and that's their big issue. But I mean, think about baseball. Like you're looking at the portal. Or what do we need? Well, what you need might change dramatically after the draft, right? I mean, like your signing class, you might lose somebody. Okay, we thought this guy was going to be an impact freshman. He's decided to take Major League Baseball money and go. Now I need to go into the portal, but the portal window has been open a month before the draft, much the same way it happens in college basketball. There's not a lot of portal windows that make a lot of sense for any sport. Football squawks about it and talks about it the most because they have the 2 windows, but it's not great in baseball, and it's a challenge in basketball. Now, basketball's a little different because they only have 2 rounds of the draft, but my stars, I mean, all kinds of people get drafted in the Major League Baseball draft, and, you can have a guy thinking he's going to go on the 3rd round, and all of a sudden he goes late in the 1st round, and everything you thought about him is completely changed in terms of finances.
You could have a kid that gets drafted in the 3rd or the 4th round, and they told Tennessee or communicator, whatever, like, hey, this is my number. Like, unless you meet this number, go, higher. Like, I'm going to college. Like, it is what it is. Don't draft me. They take him in the 3rd or 4th round and then pay him a ton over the slot because they save money in the 1st or the 2nd round. So, I mean, again, it can all change, and that is why you take them. People are like, well, draft risk, why? Any chance they even make it to campus? Why are they doing this? Because you just never know. You take them, and then you figure it out. And that's just kind of that with the Tyler Myatt kid, don't know where he's going to play defensively. He's a draft risk too, but don't know where he's going to play defensively. Just get him here and figure it out. And that's kind of been the philosophy for some of those guys. RWDYvawl, will Joel Wyatt be a wide receiver, defensive back, or edge? And who's the top 5 Vol football players of all time, regardless of position? Loaded question here at the back half.
Joel Wyatt, Tennessee's recruiting him as an edge.
Okay. Top 5 football players, regardless of position. Rob Lewis, why don't you lead us off here?
Default is Peyton. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about order, but I mean, I'm putting Peyton number 1 for sure. I mean, after that, I mean, I'm just going to go my lifetime. So Doug Atkins and Baby Feathers. I apologize, guys that I've seen. I'll throw Al Wilson up there, Jamal Lewis up there for sure. Man, I'd probably throw. I think it's tough. Dale Carter. Man, Leonard Little. I don't know. Peyton, Jamal, Al, and Dale Carter are pretty easy for me. After that, man, I don't know. 5's really tough. I mean, Leonard Little is in there.
I'm putting probably Eric Berry on my list.
Yeah, I was going to say young guy. Eric Berry's got to be there for me.
I mean, but Reggie was not that. I mean, it's blasphemy. Reggie was not that great here. I mean, he had a really good last year. I mean, it's blasphemy.
He had a great contract year, and to borrow Austin Price's line, terrific contract year. Up until that point, he had not been the most productive guy.
That's all it takes.
Man, I mean,
well, I understand, but the question is, favorite all time based on their pro success.
Like, but if you were a little kid after Reggie White was here for 2 years, you didn't want a Reggie White jersey when he was getting ready to be a junior.
Yeah, that's the interesting. He's always an interesting debate because are you debating college career or are you debating him as a football player? If it's his entire football playing career,
yes.
Obviously he's there, and it's a no-brainer. If you're saying just based on college production, then you're kind of like,
man, what if Chuck Webb hadn't gotten hurt?
Right? Yeah,
that's. I mean,
you can go for 5 hours on that debate and on that question. I mean,
you can get into just throw the stats out the window. Who are just some of your favorite, Vols as a kid? I mean, I remember watching Jabari Davis jump over the goal line as a goal line back, and I thought that was the
jump
coolest
over people. He ran over people.
I thought those are the coolest thing in the world. And he would have 3 carries a game and 2 touchdowns. I thought that was so cool.
It's so funny. I saw Jabari. We saw him at camp, and we had this discussion about him Sunday about his size being a great leaper. And I'm like, you didn't leap over people. You ran over people. And he was like, man, you got to give me more than that. I mean, I jumped.
He got off the ground.
My big body got off the ground. I was like, all right, I give you. But I felt like he ran over people more than he dove over the top of people. It was funny.
And he always shined against the Florida Gators.
He did. Florida.
Nashville 615. There was a comment in last week's mailbag about the competition all over the offensive line. Seems pretty much set outside of center. It would be a shock if the below combo wasn't starting. The below combination he lists: Lance Hurd at left tackle, Wendell Moy at left guard, Pendleton at center, and then in parentheses it puts maybe Pendleton. Satterwhite at center, parentheses maybe Pendleton. Pendleton at right guard, maybe Perry if something happens at center, and then David Sanders.
Now, I don't remember the comment last week of us implying that every position was up for grabs on the offensive line. It's real simple for me. It's who's the center, and that's going to dictate how they go at the right guard spot. To me, if Pendleton's the center, then you have a different right guard. If Satterwhite's the center, I think Pendleton's going to be the right guard. I think that's where it lies, is what happens at center and right guard. I think the other 3 spots are set.
I agree.
Would you compare Tony Vitello's recruiting to what Georgia and Alabama do in football? It's truly amazing.
You would know better than anybody else, Eric, so run with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the best recruiter in the game. I don't think it's close. I mean, he's been top 5 almost every year he's been here. He's been 1 or 2 the last couple of years. This year, and again, they're going to lose several to the draft, but he's got 8 current commits in the top 110. It's incredible. And again, you just get them and you figure it out. Get them figured out. I mean, this class right here is their best work. Him, Elander, Anderson, Kivett. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. So, I mean, based on what he's done year over year and what he's done in the portal as well, Tennessee's had a whole lot of success in the portal. I would definitely compare that to what Georgia and Alabama have done in recent years. Volunteered 87. Who do you think is the highest ceiling, lowest floor position group of next football season? Seems like the receiver room has a lot of talent, but not much depth. I'm curious what a group y'all think has the biggest variation for the end of the season report card. So highest ceiling, lowest floor position group.
I think there probably would be a receiver. I mean, I think that's there's so much unknown with that group. I think we all believe there's a lot of talent in that room, but until they prove it as a group, a collective unit, I think you have to say it's just a high ceiling and low floor. I would also quietly throw quarterback on there, because I think you don't know about any of those quarterbacks. You don't know what Joey will be like at this level with this kind of pressure in a program like Tennessee. You don't know what Merklinger's got. You don't know what George has. So I think the floor is low on them because you just don't know.
Last question right here, and this question isn't intended to be a knock on anyone, but in 2025, do Liam Doyle and Blake Morningstar, that's the Wake Forest ace, Blake Morningstar, college agents, as example, get involved in the decision to pitch them again on Monday, or is that decision solely between Frank, Tony, Trainer, and Liam? Interesting question, and I think this past weekend in the regional, this is a little bit different because those two guys pitched on Friday, and then they came back in on Monday to try to win their game and advance on. But I mean, I think this question can kind of go for any sport in college athletics right now, because I think for some, depends on who you're talking to and what the situation is. But I think for some, that very much family / agent / are very much involved in this process. Now, I mean, look at Liam Doyle. He's going to be a top 10 pick, maybe a top 5 pick. He's in consideration for National Pitcher of the Year, the Golden Spikes, and he pretty much demanded to get the baseball at some point on Monday because he wants to win that bad. That's what I know. There's been some tweets about it. I think Griffin Merritt put a tweet out there about it. But in this era of college athletics where it's money, trade, transfer portal, all that and more, like that is so great to see right there. That's awesome. But to answer the question, I do think that it depends on the person. I think this was a Liam Doyle wants the baseball. Liam Doyle got the baseball. But I think, depending on where you are and who you're talking about, I think it's very much an all-inclusive conversation with player, coach, agent, family.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think everybody's situation is different. Everybody's influencers around them are different. It's not all the same. Some guys take a lot of influence from people around them. Some guys don't take any influence from people around them. It just varies from player to player.
Anything to add, AP?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. That's going to do it here for this edition of the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us and sending in your questions. And we'll continue to do this next Thursday. We'll be back on the Volquest Podcast on Tuesday morning to talk a little bit about Tennessee and the Super Regionals this weekend at Fayetteville. We'll have you covered from Fayetteville this weekend. Looking forward to that. What's the latest in Tennessee recruiting, basketball as well, all that and more on the General's Quarters over at VolQuest.com each and every single day. For Austin Price, Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, I am Eric Kane. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast.